Day 8. Now we're talking about maximizing our results with property investing for our financial future with having a better understanding. Now better understanding comes through understanding our options and our position today. And by today, I mean in the last couple of weeks, making sure your context of understanding is up to date. Up to date on the market, up to date on the lending, just making sure you're staying in the game, because property investing is a long-term game. So you never want to turn off your emails from realestate.co.nz and Trade Me. Just keep them coming in, even if you don't think you're going to buy for like another couple of years. You want to stay current, looking at listings, looking at how things are being marketed, looking at what discounts and offers are going through, and potentially even going back and looking at some listings that you said, oh, that's worth 1.1. Go back and look at what it's sold for. So it's good to keep spreadsheets of suburbs you're working with, so that the information you're working with is up to date and you do stay knowledgeable even if you're not buying at the moment. Now, understanding your finance and lending options is going to help you maximize your results. What you really need to understand is that banks look at things differently. So one bank might treat cars as a certain expense, and another bank would treat it as more expensive. So if your cars are being treated as more expensive at another bank, what that does is brings your borrowing power down at that bank. So there's a lot of variables that impact when you're trying to maximize borrowing power. Things like number of cars, types of cars, number of dependents, like things like having 2 kids or 3 kids. The difference between that and the banks is pretty significant, especially when you're getting into the bigger mortgages. You might be able to borrow 700,000 at one bank. You go to another bank, you can borrow 800 or 900,000 just purely based on the dependence expense. KiwiSaver investments, the way the banks are looking at that as a cost to you, and that will impact your borrowing power. Insurances, age, income type, a lot of things impact your borrowing power, and looking at different banks is going to help you maximize your borrowing options. And because things like cars, dependents, of course age and income type, they change all the time, what was the best bank in 2017 or 2010 is quite highly likely not going to be the best bank 2022, 2023, alright? What you also really want to understand if you're trying to maximize your borrowing power is you need to understand and be working with an advisor that knows about non-bank lenders. So non-bank lenders are specialized mortgage lenders. They often, all they do is lend for mortgages. They're more pragmatic, which means that they can be more selective and they can say yes to things that other banks, the banks can't say yes to. And they speed up goal attainment. Now, non-bank lenders are not always as restricted as the main banks on LVR positions. So what that means is your leveraging ability can actually, you can borrow more money. And if you're short by a little bit, or 100,000, 200,000 at a main bank, your LVR restricted, considering a non-bank lender is going to get you into property a bit sooner, or another property, and it's not a 30-year solution to be at a lender that might be 1 to 2% higher than a main bank, but it allows you to execute. Now, because the rates are a little bit higher, you are forced to focus more on the numbers. But if you want to maximize your results, you need to understand all of the options. And it's not, should I use a non-bank lender? That's not the right question. Is why should I not? Well, why should I not is because I've done the numbers, or I'm using a main bank and I'm using the right main bank. Now, if you want to free up borrowing power, there are broker tricks. There are tools of the trade that are often brought in where the numbers are a little bit, where creativity might be needed. So understanding your options to get help from friends and family, understanding contributions and costs and how they're viewed differently between the banks might mean that you end up pausing your KiwiSaver for 6 months, for example, and those contributions might stop going out of your account and your borrowing power goes up. You can re-establish those KiwiSaver contributions at a later date if that's what you want to do. But if you want to maximize your borrowing power, you need to understand how these contributions to investments and the costs that you're running on a daily basis are impacting your borrowing power. Now, if you want to free up borrowing power, you can refinance or restructure, and that's often the first step if you want to maximize results. You might need to refinance your 17-year mortgage back up to a 25-year mortgage, and it might feel like you're taking a step back, but you're actually taking maybe 1 or 2 steps back, so you can take 5 steps forward. And refinancing restructure is part of the process of building up an investment portfolio. It's not once you're more comfortable with your debt, you can maximize your results again. Like, it's not about paying off one mortgage and then when you're mortgage free going to buy another house. It's not works like that. So understand that. And income type, if you want to free up borrowing power, understanding how the different income types are treated and assessed is going to be a massive advantage for you. Contractor income, self-employed income that's short term, these types of things are going to bring down your borrowing power, and it might be a relatively simple switch or picking the right bank that is going to free up borrowing power for you, and it's just simply that you haven't found the right advice yet. So if you want to maximize results, you do need better understanding of all these little nuanced things, and there's much more behind it. Don't just look at properties, don't just shrug your shoulders. All this information is available. You just got to find the right people to help you out.